Okay, so we're going to start a little early. I switched it over. I thought I didn't know it went over, so I saw the time. I had 1 minute left, but I was sitting here anyway. So, welcome, guys. Guys, you guys are here. Good morning. This is my first live stream for this today for this week, and unfortunately, it's also going to be my last for this week. There's a possibility I might do one Friday, but there's a lot going on. It's the 4th of July week, so there's like a ton of stuff going on. So it's really kind of crazy, busy wise or business wise, and it's all good, but it's also busy. But nonetheless, today we are going to have a live stream. Thank you guys for being here. Good to see you guys. Let me get this rolling on the TikTok side a little bit here. There we go. Good. All right. So yeah, so it's Tuesday now. Yesterday was crazy. I planned on having a live stream yesterday, but some things kind of kept coming up and got kind of derailed my day. And I realized really quick, if I did not jump into work immediately, I was going to be working until very late. And I still ended up working very late, but it would have been even worse. So I had to give up something, and so I chose to give up live streaming. So, but anyway, we're back today. So today, a few things I want to talk about today. Well, I'm going to talk about the mortgage interest rate. Just briefly, we'll talk about that before we actually start the show. Then found this really kind of a good article that we're going to kind of talk through. And it's called "The Rules That Once Helped Americans Buy Homes Now Risk Leaving Them in the Red," and that red being financially in the red. And it's talking about kind of like the traditional advice that you would get as like a buyer. You know, like 20% down, and you want 1% held back for repairs and maintenance, and what that kind of looks like, right? And how long you typically live in a home. Well, a lot of those type of things now are tend to be more not the most advisable in certain circumstances. Now, it doesn't mean it's not in every case, but it's a conversation about that. Then we will have a conversation about the push to make new construction listings more accessible. In our industry, I was reading through this article and I was like, yeah, this is actually really good, because there is a lot of new homes, new construction. And then there is this, then you got the second home market where the homes have been lived in for multiple times and that kind of stuff. But the problem is on the MLS, all that data is into one place. And it's hard to sometimes find the benefits of the new homes and where the new homes are and all that, because you're doing a search and just bringing up everything, even though there might be like little filters you can select and that kind of stuff. But it's also difficult for the consumer when they go online to search and they're trying to find new homes or any kind of incentives that that builders want to have. So it's kind of talking about this. There's a new kind of technology or platform kind of coming up that might help with some of this. Then we'll touch on just this housing bill and how Trump is not signing that. We'll get into that just a little bit more of like just kind of an update about that, not really a deep dive. And then we'll see. I don't think that might be the end of the show. That might be as far as we can get today. If we have more time, I'll go into just a couple little things. Like I'll talk about MRED, which is another like MLS type system, is arguing for arbitration days before Zillow court hearing. And they're arguing because Zillow's all upset because they cut off their feed, and Zillow got the court to pass where they couldn't do that, and so they got reinstated. And it's just that fight of who can do what with our listings and showcase them, and who has the right to say they can distribute or not distribute. It's still going. As a matter of fact, the hearing against Zillow, MRED, Compass, and so forth starts July 1st and 2nd. So you'll hear testimony and stuff like that from the CEOs of all companies. So that's going to start, but Compass and MRED are fighting to say that it should go to arbitration, not court and that kind of stuff. So anyway, honestly, it's kind of getting tiring talking about that, but it's relevant. It is relevant. So we're going to do a quick update on that. And then I might get into some NAR's role in MLS policy supports and local discretion. We might talk about that a little bit too. So a few articles, we'll see what happens. Before we do that though, let me just tell you, I had a really good weekend. Hopefully you guys did as well. I'm going to do my little Monday update on a Tuesday since I didn't live stream yesterday. So Monday was good, this weekend was good. It was very busy, and very hot, but it was a good weekend. Hopefully you guys had a good weekend. Now I'm going to give an update just briefly on soccer. I can't help it. I'm going to talk about soccer probably at the very beginning, because we have officially entered into the what they call the knockout round of the World Cup. Now, if this is your first time here, know that I've not been a soccer fan or football fan, what do you want to call it, until this year. And just because we're hosting it kind of became a thing and everybody's talking about it. So I began researching it and have been enjoying it greatly. I truly have been enjoying it. And so all last week in the past few weeks was all about kind of this group settings. You could tie games, you could win games, and you could try to make it on. Top 2 teams for each group would advance on, possibly top 3 would move on to the knockout round. This week, or actually Sunday, started that knockout round. And this is where you've got to have a winner, right? This is like the true competition. This is where it has started. And so let's just go this route real quick, and we'll jump into the real estate thing. I know this is a deviation from anything to do with real estate, but hey, it's before the show. So just join me. So right now, this is the FIFA World Cup bracket. I'll share my screen there too for everybody else on TikTok there. I mean, right now, this is where we're standing. This is that round. This is that round where they knock out. So if you lose the game, you're out. So yesterday, Paraguay beat Germany. Yep, Germany lost. Then went out to a shootout. I mean, it was entertaining, guys. I truly enjoyed it. But it was a knockout. Germany lost. Today we got Sweden and France actually playing, so that'd be fun. France is a really good team. I was in France, and it's all they could talk about was their team. Canada on Sunday beat South Africa. They moved on. Last night, Morocco beat Netherlands, so Morocco moves on. So this is where we're at right now. Then we got Portugal and Croatia, but then let's see down here, USA. Just so you know, USA. Mark your calendar, guys. USA plays Bosnia on July 1st at 8 p.m. Okay, so go USA. Then let's see. Then Brazil beat Japan. So that Japan put up a good fight. They did. They put up a good fight, but Brazil ended up pulling that one out at the very end. So Brazil is the favorite. I think they've won the World Cup 5 times, actually. If you guys are just joining me, notice that I'm not talking about real estate. I'm talking about soccer. So we'll get into real estate here in a second, though, I promise. I'm just updated on this bracket thing because it's fascinating. And then we got all these other games coming up. Nothing else has happened just yet. But right now, you know that Brazil's moved on. Canada and Morocco are playing each other. They moved on in Paraguay. That's what we know so far. The big game today, though, I think, is going to be this France-Sweden game at 5 p.m. That's going to be a good game. That's going to be a good game. Now, more than likely, TikTok's going to be like flagging me for showing ESPN. I don't know. Sometimes I get notified. Copyright. So, but anyway, there you go. There's the state of soccer. All right. Let's go ahead and jump into the show, guys, and we'll get started, like I said, and we'll talk about real estate and what's going on the real estate news. If this is your first time joining me, let me just briefly tell you what I do. You watched the part of the show where I just kind of give you a little bit of insight onto me and what I do and who I am, what I'm into. Then I jump into the actual real estate part. And what I talk about here is I invite you into my office, grab a cup of coffee. We go over real estate news that's happening currently. Specifically, most of the time, it's aimed at helping real estate agents and brokers and those type of things. But sometimes even it goes into just overall just good information for buyers and sellers and consumers. So it's a little bit of a mix. I will encourage those that are maybe not in real estate to maybe participate, still listen, because you're going to learn a lot. But just know it is more specifically for real estate agents. Now today it's going to be more focused that this is going to be beneficial for all parties, everybody, because the topics we're talking about does apply to the majority of people buying and selling homes. So just know that this is going to be a good conversation. But what I do is I read through the news. I give you some of my observations. I love chat. So like you guys are welcome to interrupt me. That's what I love about live streaming is it's real, it's raw, it has all kinds of mistakes, but it's also engaging. So you guys that are listening, you have something you want to say it. Say it in the comments. If I'm in the middle of a rant or an opinion or whatever, if I see your post, I will stop and I will engage with it and talk through it. So just know I love having input. You're welcome to do so. I will acknowledge it. So, all right, with all that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Real Estate Brief. I'm Adam. Today we're cutting through the noise. We're going to get to the truth in the news, look at the data, and I'll give you some of my observations and where I believe you can find opportunity. So if you're ready to gain your real estate edge, let's dive into our first story. Our first story is going to be coming from Realtor.com. And like I said, this is a little bit more of just a broad topic for all parties. This is going to be a topic that would address consumers, agents, everything to help us think through like what are the actual costs in buying a house and the advice that we're given on how to buy a house, if that makes sense or not. If that advice that we have given, like save 20%, save 1% for repairs and undue expenses or unknown expenses, those type of things, does that advice still hold water? Okay, so that's what this topic is going to be talking about. And the title of this is The Rules That Once Helped Americans Buy Homes Now Risks Leaving Them in the Red. And that's the financial red, right? Going into the red, cost expensive, right? So let's go ahead and get into this article really quick. And I'll see if I can get through it quickly so we can get through multiple articles today. Let me see if I can size that up just a little bit. And those that are on TikTok, don't worry. I do read through kind of the article and then give my opinion. So if you can't see my screen, it's okay. You can just listen in like a podcast, right? So that's the beautiful thing about it too. You don't necessarily have to see my screen to follow along. You can just listen to me talk. And I do try to talk through what I'm seeing and reading. All right, it begins off with this. There's no shortage of rules in real estate. Boy, that's amen. There's more just constantly coming out too. There's all kinds of rules and laws and stuff. But baked into these maxims are economic assumptions that no longer hold up in today's market. Now, just again, what we're talking about is that typical advice that we might give. If you go back 20, 30 years and you ask, like, what do I need to buy a house? It might be something along the lines of I need to save 20% to get a conventional loan, to save on PMI, and then get a lower interest rate, those type of that type of advice. Here's what earnest money you need to have down, all that kind of stuff. And just like anything, if we don't constantly keep informed, we just fall into patterns and then we start making recommendations that might not match up with reality anymore. So this article is going to kind of help us think through this and make sure that what we are telling our clients, or if we're a consumer, is that we are understanding what really the advice we are giving is still correct. I'm getting spammed. Let's see. Let me get rid of this. Hold on. Don't spam me. All right. There we go. This is the beautiful thing about live too, is you sometimes get like spammed on stuff. So, all right. The core problem is the interaction of three things happening simultaneously, explains Hannah Jones, senior economist at Realtor.com. Pointing to high mortgage rates, slowing appreciation, and a whirlwind of rising carrying costs such as property taxes, insurance, and maintenance. That confluence is quietly turning the guidance that's helped generations of home buyers and owners navigate the market into a financial risk, says Benjamin Sheehan, CEO of Fincast, a mortgage platform. Just so you know, this article is by Realtor.com, written by Alaire Conte on June 26, 2026. All right. Quote, you can end up putting money in the wrong places, overpaying for your mortgage or delaying home ownership longer than necessary, he says. So, to see where the old math is breaking down, Realtor.com examined three of the most common rules. And this is what you're going to see here is if you're in real estate at all, you've probably given this advice, right? You have given this advice. So here's the typical three rules. The 5-year break-even timeline. In other words, I'm going to buy the house and within 5 years, I'll break even on this home, right? I buy it now, it's going to appreciate all the expense that I put up front. And within 5 years, I will recoup all of that, whatever the fees that I paid to buy that house. After 5 years, I will have went from being in the hole a little bit on the appreciation side to now being net positive, okay? That's part of the advice. Then you heard the other one, the 20% down payment. In other words, I need to have 20% to be able to then buy the home, right? To buy and get a good loan and get a conventional loan, that kind of stuff. And then the other advice, and this would vary depending on the area you're in or what type of home you're buying, but a general rule that you would circulate and you would hear is the annual 1% maintenance fund. In other words, whatever the cost and that is and my income and that kind of stuff, I will set aside 1% of that to just maintain the general maintenance of my home. All right, so that's the typical advice, give or take some percentage points. All right, we found that following these rules without adjusting them to a buyer's finances, market, and home could mean taking up to 30 years to break even, spending 37 and a half years saving for a down payment, or falling thousands of dollars short of the maintenance fund a home actually requires. And this is the problem whenever you start doing blanketed comments about the general idea about buying a home. I mean, you think of it as a consumer too, guys. Like if you're out there and you're listening, you're a consumer thinking about buying or selling a house. The only way this really makes sense is if you know all the variables and if you know the facts of the person buying the house. So you as a realtor, you got to get in the weeds a little bit. You got to get in there and understand their income and their makeup and how they spend their money, what kind of lifestyle they like, and what kind of nest egg they have, how secure is their jobs. Like these are all factors. Like if we're going to truly advise clients correctly, we really need more information to be able to give actual advice. Okay, so keep that in mind. And what this report is saying is look what they've discovered. Look at what they've said. And a home could mean taking up to 30 years to break even. In other words, did they overpay? What does that look like? Spending 37 and a half years saving for down payment. If you got to save 20% up, you got to save 20%. Most people are paycheck to paycheck. If they got to save 20%, it could take years to get to that 20% to be able to buy a house because look how much a home costs. Like, right? I mean, you think about this and just think about your own situation. Right now, let's just make it simple. The average, average selling price, and this is not accurate by any means, but it's close, okay? The average selling price is around $300,000, okay? Average price of a home is $300,000. What's 20% of that? What's 20%? 60 grand. 60 grand. You guys have 60 grand just sitting in your account you can just write a check for, right? That's the point. It's like if you're giving advice saying you need 20% down, well, how long does it take people to save that kind of money? And then how much equity are they losing in appreciation over time, right? So again, we gotta kind of get in the weeds a little bit with them. All right, they're going to take each one by one. The 5-year rule could take 30 years to pay off. Home buyers are generally told to expect to live in a home for at least 5 years before they break even on their investment. The rule rests on the long-running assumption, and that's an assumption, that home values will appreciate at roughly 5% a year, close to the national median since 1987. Okay, so if you look at the past, 50 years, 30, 40, 50 years, you would say roughly, by taking those expanse of time, that it's going to be roughly around 5%. But we've had some really crazy exceptions to that rule right now, and that's going to create a little bit of a problem, right? So we can't just go by that math anymore. We have to kind of get in the weeds again a little bit more. We got to understand the situation. And a lot of times too, like when you say people live in a home for at least 5 years before they break even, my experience has been this. It's not that people are even concerned. They're not sitting there living in their home for 5 years like, well, I got to stay here for 5 years to be able to get my money back. The reality is they say, I got to stay in this. They don't even think about how long they're going to stay there. It just ends up being that they average being in their home about 5 years. And if you think about this, it's not really too hard to understand why. You go and you move into a house. Let's just say you're newly married. You buy a very particular house for yourself, okay? What all could happen in 5 years? Well, you could have a kid. And the house you bought, maybe it's just a 2-bed, 1-bath, no longer works for you, right? So you now need to figure out another house. And that 5-year blocks of time typically makes you then move because you need your life circumstance changes in those 5-year marks. So that's kind of what happens. But then the math on the other side of that, as far as appreciation is concerned and your profitability and to recoup your costs, averages out to be in about 5 years. So that's why that advice came in there. It's like that all kind of jived and made sense. Let's continue. But home prices have not moved at anything close to a steady pace in recent years. Oh, this is true. This is where it's going to get interesting. In 2021, national appreciation topped 17%, sharply shortening the time needed for owners to recoup their upfront costs. That's the thing. We hit this crazy inflation during COVID that was ridiculous. I mean, month over month, it was just compounded upon itself. Prices are going out crazy. Interest rates are extremely low. So people are building massive amounts of equity very, very quickly. By 2025, price growth had slowed to just over 2%. So we went from 17 back in 2021 down to just over 2% in 2025. What a crazy number, right? This year, it has slowed farther. Yeah, we're sitting about 1.7, I think. About 1.7. And this is why there's another argument too, and we won't get into that today, but there's a lot of push on the feds, and even Trump's making a lot of big time push for the feds to lower their rates. But the problem is that the Fed always is trying to look at that 2% inflation rate. They like the 2% because, again, if you go to the historical average, a 2% inflation or appreciation of homes is always historically been a very stable market. So they try to look at that number and be like, oh, 2%, that's a good place to be. So they like that number. So at 1.7, they're not apt to do anything. They're more apt to just let that ride out and see what happens and then adjust accordingly later. Now, Trump and that administration is wanting to see a revitalization in the home affordability and spur people back into buying. So interest rate is one of those numbers that they can try to change. So that's the argument. That's a whole nother topic. But again, we're sitting closer to the historical norm of appreciation. We're nowhere near 17%. But 2021 to 2025 and counting 2026, that's your 5-year span. That percentage of roughly around 5% inflation per year is not holding up. At today's rate of appreciation, the U.S. break-even point would be in around year 30 of a 30-year mortgage. Okay? With home prices growing only 0.8% year over year, this is where news articles can get a little bit interesting because just keep in your mind, real estate is local. Okay? So I would take a number like 0.8% and go and verify that in my own local market and see where that number lands. But let's just go with it, okay? Year-end 2026, it will take almost the full lifetime of the loan to recoup interest and transaction costs via principal pay down and appreciation. Of course, that doesn't mean every buyer who purchases in 2026 will need 3 decades to break even. A 0.8% national appreciation rate is unusually slow, and it would be unprecedented for growth to remain that weak over an extended period. I'm glad they're putting this in here because that is absolutely true, right? But it shows how quickly advice turns sour when the unspoken economic assumption within it break down. And I would just say, yeah, if you were to say the 0.8% appreciation stayed that way for 30 years, okay, great. That makes sense. That's going to take you 30 years to recoup that. But it's not going to do that. We are in a market that is always up and down. Appreciation is going to go back and forth. And in 30 years, ton of stuff can happen. So we're just going to go with this argument that they're making and just to help us kind of think through the verbiage that we use to advise our clients. That gap becomes even clearer across regions. Over the past 5 years, the West has accumulated just 10.8% price growth and is now giving some of that back, with prices down 2.5% year over year. The South has seen stronger cumulative appreciation at 18.8%, but current growth has nearly stalled at 0.5%. The Northeast stands apart, posting both the strongest 5-year gains and the strongest current appreciation. That's why I'm saying it's all local. And if you want to go more local, which I encourage you to do, is go into the state and then even into your region and see what's happening. Because with real estate, you have transient going on all the time. You got one incentives, maybe tax code changes, maybe job opportunity opens up, maybe whatever it might be. One market might be doing way better, and it might be just across county lines even. So it is local. So just use this as a general idea, but as a real estate agent, get in the weeds of your own data and figure out where you land and give the appropriate advice. And those differences translate directly into very different break-even timelines based on where a buyer lives. The Northeast and Midwest see much more reasonable break-even timelines due to their still strong price growth. The typical buyer in the Northeast would break even around year 7. So you got that's a big difference. Northeast would in year 7, when overall they're saying 30. So your Northeast, that more local area there is more beneficial as far as appreciation and gaining wealth. For buyers, the biggest takeaway here is not to rely on national benchmarks to guide your math. Whenever possible, look for local indicators instead. See, this is where I like this kind of journalism, guys. This is good. They're doing their research. They're making a blanketed statement that would be maybe the national average based on some historical data, but they're giving you good advice. They're also saying, look, this is our numbers, but go local. So I appreciate that. A lot of times people will try to sell articles and they don't do that. They like the hype and the fear stuff because it sells and it makes people share things and they go out and talk about it. All right, next one. The hidden cost of waiting to save a 20% down payment. But the risk to buyers begins long before they purchase a home, Jones analysis found. Given today's median home price, median household income, and typical savings rate, it would take 37.5 years to save for a 20% down payment. It's a long time. That's a far cry from the 3 years that the typical home buyer had to save in 1990. And even if you, and this is due to inflation. This is one of the biggest factors. Well, there's actually two big things here, guys, and we got to be honest. One is, yes, inflation affordability. Those are very true. And that is a major cost prohibitive. But let's not negate another one that pretty much hits a little closer to home that we all need to be more mindful of is we like our stuff. All right. We like our vacations. We like our toys. We like it. We live in a culture where you open up your app and your phone, YouTube, whatever. You go to Amazon. You are inundated with how much more you need and not being content. So just as a thought out there is, yes, looking at the data, one is appreciation and income, but let's not forget the second, and that is how we use our money and where we spend it, because we do control that. And if we're trying to keep up with the Joneses too much and we're trying to spend our money that way, then we're prolonging us getting our own home and building wealth and those type of things. All right. Kevin, good morning to you, buddy. Glad you are here. Glad you are here. All right. We already see some of the pressure playing out in the market today with the typical age of a first-time home buyer reaching 40 last year, the highest on record. That's again because of income. The cost to buy and stuff is very, very high. Interestingly, there's a hidden cost to saving for too long. Further research from Realtor.com found that buying your first home by age 30, and this is where you got to understand the life of a loan and the appreciation of that, and buying now versus waiting. So if you're only worried and you're thinking, I don't want to do an FHA loan or VA loan or whatever it might be, or even a rural housing loan, I don't want to do that because I want 20% down so I can start with good, strong equity. You got to do the math, because maybe that is not the best option for you to build some form of wealth in owning a home. And that's the math we're going to talk about here. From Realtor.com found that buying your first home by age 30 results in a 22.5% or $119,000 higher net worth by age 50 than if you'd waited just 10 more years to buy in your 40s. That net worth edge disappears entirely if a buyer waits until 43 or later to enter the market. Look, you've got to live somewhere, okay? This is the thing. Would you rather live in a home where you control the idea of that home? You can invest in that home, you can build an addition, you can make improvements, you can spruce it up, you have control of that. And then at the same time, you're paying off that home, relying on appreciation and fluctuations in the market to increase your value. So you have control of it. You have something tangible. You have an asset. It's not an asset yet. When you buy a home, it's still a liability. But it is going to be an asset over the years of time versus paying rent. The reality is, if you're paying rent, you are still paying a mortgage. The problem is you don't get the benefits of that asset. The other person you're paying to, and that's your landlord. So you still have to live somewhere. Ray Thompson, yeah. All these people are spamming today. I'm going to say spam. It's so ridiculous. All right. Evan Mills, Associate Financial Advisor at Scholar Advising, explains that directing every available dollar toward a down payment can leave buyers exposed when the home needs repairs or unexpected bills arrive. I would much rather see someone put less down and keep a strong cash reserve than hit 20% on a house they should not be buying. They should not be buying and have no money left over. This is true. The mortgage is not going to be the only expense you have to take into account. No, owning a home is expensive. It has expenses. Christina Rordam, an agent in Orlando, Florida, with more than 2 decades of experience, agrees. Quote, I have heard the myth that buyers need 20% down to purchase a house quite a bit. The fact is, sometimes buyers don't need a down payment at all. She points to FHA mortgage programs, which require as little as 3.5% down, and notes that conventional mortgages can also work with lower down payments. Yes. This is where you want to shop around and look around and see what's out there. But lower down payment options come with their own risk. They may get buyers into a home sooner, but they also leave less room for error and appreciation slows or sale becomes sooner than expected. Again, getting in the weeds, understanding your client, what they need, and what those risks look like is very, very important, and understanding how this all works. All right, let's jump down to the final one. Why the 1% rule falls short in 2026. And this is kind of weighing those two options. You've got one where you're trying to get 20% down, where it doesn't necessarily make sense if you don't have any money set aside to make repairs. So why the 1% rule falls short in 2026. And this is not going to be hard for us to understand this one. If you own a home out there and you had to do any kind of repairs, you know where this is going. Mill's point about unexpected repairs brings up another common piece of advice. Home buyers should put aside 1% of a home's purchase price each year for maintenance. For a buyer purchasing a median price $425,000 home, that works out to roughly $4,250 annually, or about $355 a month. Okay? It's a simple enough starting point, but the shocking rise in repair costs shows how dangerous this general guidance is when treated as a fail-safe. Yep, if this is what you're relying upon, and this is like your percentage, you're going to fall short if you have any kind of minor repair needed. So it's just too small. It's not enough money. It could be a lot. And then depending on the age of the home too, if you buy an older home, that number goes up much higher. Okay, so you got to keep those things in mind too. From 2022 to 2024 alone, the average repair cost jumped 16.7%, far outpacing inflation, according to an analysis by the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia. Plumbing repairs saw the biggest jump at nearly 32%, while structural repairs rose 21% and electrical repairs increased 19%. Quote, you absolutely need a rainy day fund, but it should be based on the specific property. Yes, not just an arbitrary percentage. If you're going to a financial planner and that's all they say, then you need to find a different financial planner, guys, because that financial planner is just going off of old advice. A good financial planner or anybody is going to advise you based on the facts of what they see. They're going to get into the weeds with you, ask you questions about your finances, your income, how secure is your job, where your investments are, what the age of your home is, what kind of repairs you anticipate. They're going to ask these questions before they just all of a sudden say, well, yeah, let's just do 1% because we've always done 1%. Well, it's not going to hold up. It's not going to hold up. And this goes back to the argument of down payment. Okay, so you got the argument of like, if I don't buy now, okay, I'm losing equity. I'm paying mortgage for somebody else. And if I then wait for 20% down, I'm now waiting for much longer in life to then buy the house. And I'm still paying for a house because I got to rent. So once you buy a house, you have what you can start doing is build equity there. You start making improvements. So it's better to have maybe an FHA that only requires 3.5% down, but then have more cash reserves to make those repairs so you can start building equity and building that liability currently into an asset later on in life and at a much younger age. Recent research from Realtor.com confirms this. A new construction home can save buyers as much as $25,000 over the first decade of ownership when compared to purchasing a 20-year-old home, in part because of fewer major system replacements. Now, again, this is the thing, is newer construction homes typically cost just a little bit more, but then you got cost savings because you have way less repairs. So a lot of times you could look at a new construction home and say, I would be more okay with using some of my actual liquid cash in the home as a down payment. That would be more beneficial in a brand new home because I won't have to worry about so much repair cost. That's not the case if you're buying a 20-year-old home that's been lived in that you might have to have more repairs in. So you got to get in the weeds here. The math seems to work in reverse too. Owners living in homes built before 1940 spent an average of $6,500 a year on improvements and repairs. That's about 50% more than owners of homes built in 2010 or later, according to analysis of 2023 American Housing Survey of the Harvard Joint Center for Housing Studies. To guard against this, she can suggest buyers look beyond the purchase price when building a maintenance budget. A seasoned real estate agent, that's going to be you guys. Be a seasoned agent, get in there in the weeds, know and learn. Can help identify the home's age, the condition of its major systems, local repair costs, comparable properties, and known issues tied to a particular builder or neighborhood. That analysis is far more useful than applying the same percentage to every home. This is where your value rests, agents. Okay? In a world, in a society, in a consumer base that constantly says you're not relevant, this makes you very relevant. When they're going out and they're making bad decisions because they're going to ChatGPT or wherever to get their advice that doesn't understand the nuances of what we just talked about there, right? A seasoned real estate agent can help identify what? Home's age, the condition of its major systems, local repair costs. They know people that make repairs. They know what that looks like. Do you know what those look like? Comparable properties, that you understand the nuances inside of that. Remember, AI and all these other places just have data. They don't have the understanding because what they don't really know is a particular builder or neighborhood and what that actually looks like. They don't know the people. You do. This is where your analysis is so crucial. It's so crucial. You got to lean into it. This is stuff you need to know. It's just not the fun stuff. Like this is not fun, right? It's kind of boring stuff, but it's so important. If you want to make a career of this and be a true professional, this is the weeds you're going to get into. This is where you're going to go. Okay. Igcat, hello person. Hello, how are you? Thanks for being here. That's great. Hello person. I don't know if anyone else sees that. That's funny. I'm actually going to spotlight that. Igcat, what you doing? I'm talking about real estate is what we're doing. We are talking about real estate in the news and what's going on there. That is the topic of the day. The new rule of thumb should be work smarter, not harder, he says. Instead of trying to force yourself into outdated benchmarks, use the programs, platforms, and information that exists today to make more informed decisions. Personalization should be the real rule of thumb. That means testing the full monthly cost of the home, including taxes, insurance, maintenance, and cash reserve against their income. Weigh a smaller down payment against a larger income and so forth, right? There you go. I do not do PC stuff. No. I don't do PC stuff, Igcat. I do real estate. Yeah. But hey, if you're in the market to buy or sell a house, this might be helpful. Or if you're a realtor, it's very helpful, hopefully. All right. Before I move on to the next article, let's just quickly talk about interest rate real quick, and then we'll jump on to the next one. Interest rate currently sits at 6.52 for 30-year fixed rate. That's down 0.01%. Nothing drastic here. And I just don't see anything drastically happen anyway. So this is why I say it's going to be really brief. 15-year fixed is 6.12. 30-year FHA is 6.07. What I would love to see, honestly, out of all this, what I would just love to see just for the overall mentality and confidence of our market would be that 30-year FHA to be 5.99. I think that would be great. I just love to see a 5 in one of these numbers. I think it just builds buyer confidence. It affects the payment, but not much, right? So anyway, personal opinion. Nothing that big going on there. All right. Quick swig of coffee, guys. And let's go ahead and jump into our second article here. The push to make new construction listings more accessible. This is needed. I'll just kind of briefly talk about what this is going to be about, and then we'll get into the article. So one of the biggest challenges on the real estate side of things is knowing all new construction in our markets. Like we can go to the MLS and we can pull that up, but a lot of times new construction isn't always on the market. Like if a new home's being built, most of the time there's like a development that's got multiple homes in it with multiple floor plans, but only one or two is at the phase where they can be put on the market. But there's other homes in that area that are being built that we just don't have information on yet. So there's this disconnect of information that the realtor really would be very helpful to have, even the consumer. So that this article is going to be talking about technology and stuff that's coming out that's going to try to centralize new construction that is coming to the market or not necessarily on the market just yet, that gives a database and information for people to then have access to. Okay, so let's talk about this because I think this is a good topic, and just to kind of throw it out there, hope people are listening to do something like this. I think it would be very helpful for our industry and even the consumer to know of new construction. So this article is by the National Association of Realtors under the Real Estate News Technology category, written June 29th by Melissa Dittman Tracy. It says, here's how technology companies are helping agents better connect buyers to new home inventory. As buyers increasingly begin their home search online, the new construction market has been drawing growing attention as builders compete more aggressively on affordability, offering incentives and competitive pricing on newly built homes. This is true. There is more of this competition stuff going on because they're trying to get the eyes of the buyer. Hold on, I'm going to sneeze. There we go. Usually I sneeze twice. We'll see what happens. But we see this happening all the time where buyers or builders are starting to offer these incentives like, hey, buy from me and we'll do a buy down. We'll give X amount of dollars towards closing, these type of stuff. There's not a location where we can just go to get this information, or a builder can just push that information out to. There's just no platform for this. All right. Yet new construction listings continue to lag behind resale housing when it comes to accessible, centralized listing data. Information is often scattered across builder websites, sales centers, email updates, and third-party platforms, making it difficult for agents and buyers to get a clear, up-to-date picture of what's available. Technology companies are working to close that gap. New Estate Only, NEO, a startup that participated in the 2025 REACH program through Second Century Ventures, is building tools designed to make builder-approved inventory, pricing incentives, and project details more transparent and accessible to real estate agents. This is good, right? New Estate Only, a startup that participated. I'm gonna New Estate Only. Let's see, is that what it's called? Technology companies are working to close that gap. New Estate Only, a startup that participated. Yeah. Let me just real quick. I'm going to open up. I'm just kind of curious before we get into this. Who is this, right? New Estate Only, NEO. A free pre and under construction listing showcase that meets everyone's needs. All right. So you select your state. Just say all and do a search. And it pulls up. There you go. It's going to do a quick search for you. It says Community Windsor K Resort, Holt Homes, Clermont, Florida, from $522,990 under construction, quick move-in homes available. We can click this and see what happens. It talks about the neighborhood, things being under construction. So think about this as like, it's almost like a Zillow for, in a way, like a portal for builders. And you can ask for more information. I'm just kind of curious on how it ties into real estate agents, right? Like how does this work for real estate agents? Can I click on this? See, and they can, the cool thing is they can post all the information about their homes, and then they can post the details, and they can just update it directly from here. And you got the floor plans. So it gives them a centralized location to do these type of updates, right? Receive updates. Looks like you have to join. I'm just kind of curious on like how it works for, it looks like it's just Florida and Texas is the only places they're in right now. But you get the idea. The general idea is that it's a centralized location for builders and stuff to push out their information to and quickly update. So then realtors and everybody has access to this. Okay, let's continue on. Where was I? Right here. Is building tools designed to make builder-approved inventory, pricing incentives, and project details more transparent and accessible for real estate agents. Paulo Bethencourt, NATO, has spent more than a decade leading international sales and marketing initiatives for the home builder Lennar Home. And now, as president and chief growth officer at NEO, he's bringing builders and real estate professionals together to reshape accessibility to new home listings. And this is kind of an interview process, okay? So let's go through this. National Association of Realtors asked, many buyers start their home search online. But new construction inventory can still be difficult to navigate compared to resale listings. What are the biggest challenges buyers and agents face when trying to find accurate information about pre-construction and under construction homes? I think we all know what this is going to be like. The challenge begins with the fact that new construction operates differently from resale. A resale transaction typically revolves around a single home. New construction revolves around an entire project that evolves over time. Yes. Right? You got this whole big subdivision that's got changes and stuff going on all the time. Whereas when we go out and we list a home, we're only talking about that one property. As a result, information is often distributed across builder websites, sales centers, PDFs, email updates, and various third-party platforms. In other words, it's just thrown out there. Who knows where the true information's at? In an era when consumers expect real-time information in virtually every industry, the new construction market still relies heavily on fragmented information flows. The opportunity for the industry is not simply to create more data, but to make existing data more accessible, accurate, and easier to compare. All right, to do that, does the relationship between builders and real estate professionals need to evolve? This is a great question, okay? Is there a breakdown between builder and realtor? Is there still a need for a realtor? This is a good question. Bethencourt NATO says, like most industries, home builders have looked for ways to reduce customer acquisition costs. Okay, they're looking for ways to bring their cost of a new construction built home down. Rising land prices is a factor. The labor cost is another high factor. Financing expenses, right? Insurance, regulatory pressures have put increasing pressure on margins. Those margins are getting tighter and tighter and tighter for builders. Naturally, builders have explored ways to generate more business directly with consumers. Makes sense. Their margins, they're trying to run a business and try to be profitable. And trying to keep people employed and keep them working. Hey, Jake.com, yo, what's up? Thank you for being here. That led to significant investment in digital marketing, research, advertising, consumer portals, and other direct-to-consumer strategies. What many builders have discovered is that generating leads and generating buyers are not the same thing. Real estate professionals continue. This is great, guys. If you're a realtor out there, listen. Real estate professionals continue to be the most effective customer acquisition channel in the industry because they bring something technology cannot. Trusted relationships, right? They know their client. Local market expertise and qualified clients who are ready to make a purchase decision. If realtors were not in this equation, the cost of acquiring a buyer actually goes up for the builder. And you got to think about this. Is if there was no realtor in the equation, let's just say realtors did not exist at all, and the builder was the only person representing themselves and a buyer coming. Who is going to help that buyer get qualified and go from being a non-qualified buyer all the way to closing to buy that house? It takes man hours. Every realtor and everybody out there that's ever bought sold a home understands all the hours of communication back and forth. So who would end up having to carry that? The builder. Okay. And then in turn, the builder would then have to do all of the marketing of that property through all different channels. So what do you think they have to do? They have to hire somebody to do that. So why do that when you can have a realtor that's already licensed and the legality part of that representation falls on the licensee that is licensed in the state, that has their own E&O insurance, and deflect some of that liability and also reduce your outgo. You don't have to staff somebody for this. It's just logistics. And the fact the way the whole real estate industry works puts us in the forefront of acquiring all the buyers. So it's not that the margins are tight for builders and they got to figure out ways to be more creative on everything else. The one thing they're not really interested in doing is eliminating the realtor in the equation. It wouldn't make financial sense. The future relationship between builders and real estate agents is likely to become even more important as the market grows more competitive. More builders, more things going on. Builders need efficient access to qualified buyers, and buyers need knowledgeable professionals who can help them navigate an increasingly complex marketplace. Don't fall into the idea that because we have ChatGPT, because they can get all the information they want, all the answers they want, makes it easier. No, it doesn't make it easier. It actually makes it more complex and more confusing. Because now every time I go in, I can get more information and more advice, and I cannot articulate it all to put it into actual physical response into the situation of a contract. I can't do it. It's too much information. So you need somebody who has experience. Where do you think the biggest technology gaps still exist in the new construction segment, and how are companies like NEO addressing them? The biggest technology gap in new construction is distribution. This is true. We're talking about this constantly. Even in markets with hundreds of active communities, most real estate professionals only have access to a small portion of the available opportunities. We really only have access to what is currently listed. We don't really have a true knowledge of what's going on in that neighborhood that is being built by that developer. Researching the broader market often requires building relationships with individual builder sales representatives, visiting communities, and spending significant time gathering basic information that should be readily accessible. As a result, many agents end up selling the same builders and communities repeatedly. Yeah, so that's what ends up happening. We fall into this pattern. At NEO, we're focused on helping solve that problem by making builder-approved information more accessible to real estate professionals. The goal is simple. Help agents spend less time researching and more time advising their clients. That's what NEO is trying to do here. It's trying to create that central location for, let's just say, this just makes simple sense, right? If I was a builder and I bought a big tract of land, I've got the floor plans and the renderings of the homes I'm going to be building. I've even got the plat drawn out of where the road's going to be and where the lots are. What does a builder do to begin promoting that? They have their own website. They have their own Facebook page, but there's not a centralized location where a realtor can go in and see all builders and all developments. So distribution becomes fragmented So then I can't have access to all the information. I don't know what's going on in these developments, where Neo is focused on addressing that problem, giving them a centralized location to talk about what is up and coming, what they currently have, and what the floor plans look like, and what might be being built. So makes sense. One criticism of the new construction market has been that information can quickly become outdated as projects progress. How has your company attempted to solve this with the use of iframes for agents? And he answers, one of the most common causes of outdated information is duplication. Our approach is to reduce duplication wherever possible. Through embedded iframe technology, agents can display builder-approved information directly from the source rather than maintaining separate copies on their own websites. This means that when a builder updates inventory, pricing, floor plans, or project details, those changes are reflected automatically wherever the information is embedded. From the consumer's perspective, the experience feels more current and reliable from the agent's perspective. From the agent's perspective, it reduces the time spent verifying information, increases confidence in what they are sharing with clients. So in other words, think about this. Like what they're talking about is like iframe. It's a technology where let's just read it. Let's just read it. Oops. Because this is becoming iframe. This is becoming a very common topic, right? An iframe, short for inline frame, is an HTML element used to embed an external web document or media file directly inside your current web page. Iframes have been around for a very long time. The difference, though, is where AI kind of comes into play. So basically, it's creating another window inside of your website. The beautiful thing about doing it this way, and on Neo's website, is if you go to like this area here, like this could be considered an iframe, okay? Or this right here could be considered an iframe. So this right here is all about the property, right? It says under construction, Windsor K Resort. This is not specific to a certain property. It is specific to the development. So the benefit here is having an iframe where I can throw the website in there and tailor it and design it to fit my website. But then when the builder goes in and updates, maybe they have a 6-bedroom townhouse now, or maybe they change the floor plans a little bit. Maybe there's a new type of house being built. Across the board, they don't have to go out and contact every single real estate agent. Every real estate agent on their website has access to this iframe, and that development is automatically updated by the developer. So it cuts down on the inconsistency about what's being displayed across the web, right? This is not new technology. It's just the way it's being utilized, and then AI is coming in and actually helping with some of this, okay? That's what that is. The resale market has long benefited from centralized listing systems. Do you think the new construction sector is moving toward a similar model of transparency and accessibility? He goes on, I believe the new construction industry has spent years trying to force a complex category into the wrong model. Most consumer-facing platforms have treated the new construction like a variation of resale, a searchable database of listings, monetized through advertising, paid placement, or lead sales. That's the way it's been treated. New construction does not behave like resale. A resale listing usually represents a single home with a defined price, location, and condition. Yeah. At the same time, many of the industry's largest consumer platforms are built around selling leads directly to builders. Their business model depends on connecting buyers with builder sales teams, effectively bypassing real estate agent representation. This is where this is good. We believe that is a mistake. Every builder has trained sales professionals whose responsibility is to represent the builder's interests. Buyers deserve professional representation as well. Amen. They really do. I mean, you think about that. A buyer going in and negotiating with a professional sales team of a builder that does this every single day. Who's at the loss on this one? Who's at the deficit in this negotiation triangle, right? Oh, the buyer. The more complex the purchase decision becomes, the more important representation becomes. A knowledgeable real estate agent helps buyers compare communities objectively, evaluate incentives, understand financing options, identify trade-offs, and often uncover opportunities they would never find on their own. That's why we don't believe the future of construction is another portal designed to sell buyer leads. Amen. I love that positioning. I do. At Neo, we built a different model. Rather than competing with real estate agents, we equip them with builder-approved inventory, floor plans, pricing, incentives, and project information so they can better serve their clients. We believe agents should own the client relationship, not the platform. Zillow, take a note. Seriously. Technology should replace representation. It should strengthen it. Technology should not replace representation. It should strengthen it. And when buyers are represented by informed professionals, builders receive better qualified customers. It's a win-win. Consumers make better decisions, and homes are chosen based on merit and value, not simply on who spent the most time most on advertising. In other words, builder gets more happy clients because they bought what they were looking for. It's a win-win. I think these type of things excite me because they are critically looking at the issue and absorbing it from both angles, and they've built a business model that validates everybody's role correctly, right? So I applaud Neo. I'm interested to see how this goes. I really am. I'm very, very curious. All right, guys, that is it. That is all the time I have. I've got to jump back into work. Like I said, it has been a wild and crazy week. It's going to be the rest of the week too. It's the 4th of July week, guys. America's 250th year. Happy birthday, America. I hope you guys get to spend a lot of time with friends, family, celebrating, this monumental year of our nation. It's pretty cool. We're very young though. I mean, we're celebrating 250. I mean, that's young, guys. We are a young nation. So we are still in the experimental phase of our systems, and that's amazing. Domino, good morning. Caught the end of it again. Yep, that's all right. Well, I'm glad you made it anyway. I'm wrapping up now. It lives on YouTube, so you can go back and watch it. It was a good one. I hope you guys got some value out of this. But anyway, have a great 4th of July. Like I said, I will not be able to live stream the rest of this week, unfortunately. I'll be on the road. Possibility I might do a little special 250th year type thing on Friday, but I just don't think I'm going to have the time. I would like to, but I really just don't think it's going to happen. I'm not going to put the pressure on myself to do that. Again, guys, I do this because it's fun. Okay, I do this because I enjoy it. It's never going to become my stress. I'm definitely not going to play any algorithm game or anything like that. I just want to have fun with everybody. Rewinding now. Happy 4th. Good, awesome. Yeah, leave me a shout out in the comments what you thought. Thank you for being here. All right, guys, that's it. That's the end of the show. Have a great rest of your week. I will be back Monday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern time, where you're watching me now. So until then, happy 4th of July. Take care of everybody. Have a great time. That is your real estate brief for today. If you found this helpful, please consider hitting the like button to tell YouTube you'd like to see more of this type of content, and consider subscribing and follow me on TikTok to join a community of real estate agents that are focused on building a business that is relationship focused first. All right. Guys, that's it. Have a great week. See you guys next time.